Hello, Kyle. You are up last, sir. Hello.
Hi, Bart. How's it going?
How's it going, man? You got a hand for us to wrap up the show?
Yes, I do. I have a pretty degenerate hand. The old 2 a.m. Heads up. It's also MGM Springfield.
Oh, okay. So MGM Springfield again. Okay, what's the size of the game?
2-5, 1K cap.
2-5, 1K cap. Okay.
Like I said, it's heads up. I'm on the button, which is also the small blind, 2,000 effective.
So hero on button, 2K effect. Wow, that's deep, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I had doubled up through him, and he had an absolute fortress of chips. So
Okay.
And I have King of Hearts, Jack of Diamonds.
Okay.
And I raised to 15. We were both raising to 15 every time. It seems fair.
So is this a full ring game or what?
Yeah, it is. So got to like 1:45 in the morning. They close at 2:45 or last hand. And once it got down to like 5 players left, he was the only one who didn't jump out of his seat. And he seemed like a fun player, so I asked him if he wanted to keep playing. So
how many people are in the hand? This hand?
It's just heads up. Like it's me and the big blind.
Oh, you're just playing heads up.
Yeah, heads up, like 2 players at the table.
I didn't catch that. So, okay, so you're playing a live heads up hand because the game's about to go down, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and you're 2K effective on the button, so you're first to act. You're in the small blind on the button.
Yep.
Okay, and you go to 15. Okay, and how long have you been playing heads up with this guy?
At this point, maybe only half an hour.
Oh, that's still pretty long. Okay, so you raised to 15, okay.
And he 3-bets to 45.
Big blind, 3-bets to 45. You know, what's interesting here is that when you emailed me this hand, I have no idea that it was just heads up, because I was going to say that I just had looked at, I find little details about hands interesting that maybe some other people don't find interesting. And people always look at like, obviously this is a call heads up. I mean, but I'm talking about like if you were just playing like a ring game, if you open King Jack off from the button and somebody 3-bet you, a little bit different though. I almost feel like if the big blind 3-bets you here, it's a little bit stronger than the small blind. But if you open with King Jack off on the button, the small blind 3-bets, and he's playing a 3-bet or fold strategy, King Jack off is a defend in that configuration. I think it's too tight to fold button versus small blind. Obviously here heads up, it's just a call, but I had read that in the email and I thought that was interesting. So big blind to 45, and I assume you call? Hero calls?
Yeah, full ring, I would probably fold this at least at some frequency. The King Jack offsuit, but obviously heads up, it's more than good enough.
Well, it's interesting because, you think about how does somebody construct a big blind 3-betting range heads up against the button in a ring game? Because that's where you can start to see a little bit of polarity, because of the fact that he can call with a lot of medium strength hands. So sometimes you start to look at charts and you're like, oh, you see some polar 3-bets. I will be the absolute first to tell you that I have no idea what heads up ranges look like. You'd have to go to Doug Polk for that. But I know that there are some weird 4-bets. You know what I mean? Like I have no idea what they are. But I mean, I assume King Jack off is probably a call. Some of the time.
So, by the way, I'm not a heads up player, obviously, but so I'm kind of just figuring things out on the fly here. But you've said before that like a good rule for defending versus a 3-bet is pretty much just cut out the bottom 50% of your original raising range. I believe the theory goes.
What, as a defend, you mean?
Sorry, not defend, as your continue range.
Well, it depends on the guy's sizing, right? So, I mean,
of course, yeah. And this is just 3x.
Yeah, if you make it 15 and the guy goes to 45, right, and you're getting 2-1. Right? I mean, you're getting, right, the pot, 15, 40, 60, and it's what, 30 for you to call. You're getting like 2-1.
Yep.
I think you're supposed to be continuing with, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It's a lot of hands. It might be 66% of hands or plus. I mean, you're going to be folding out some of your hands, but also too, wherever it is, you're in position. So you actually defend slightly more because you get to realize your equity better. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Good point. So I believe theory says, and this is also for 100 big blind poker, we're 400 deep.
And Nate says 75% of our open range. That makes sense, Nate. I think I said 66%, but I think it's 75%. Anyways, go ahead. Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah. So I believe the theory opening range is about 80% of all hands. So then if you want to go 75% of that, I guess you would be calling with the top 60% of hands, which is just a lot of suited junk in there.
Yeah, but then the question is like, how do you, what is, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole,
Right,
but how do you, what is the top 80%? And then what's the top 75% of that? Like, is ace three off better than like 8-6 suited? You know what I'm saying? Like it's,
I've seen a chart where pretty much the only stuff you're folding is like 7 deuce offsuit and 8-3 offsuit, and you're raising all suited hands. So
I do remember that there was if anybody remembers, so I assume you call the pot to 90 as we're going to move on, but I do remember also old school David Benefield, who was one of the original card runner guys, and I think his name was Stinger. I think it's Stinger. He played a limp strategy on the button in a lot of heads up tournaments. Not limp only, but a lot of limps though too. So, and then I remember them talking about Negreanu and Polk were talking about limping in too in the small blind as well. So, like I said, I'm not an expert on it, but there's definitely different types of strategies. Okay, so the pot's like $90 to the flop. You got king jack off. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the flop is ace of diamonds, king of diamonds, 10 of diamonds.
Ace of diamonds, king of diamonds, 10 of diamonds. All right, so you've got king jack with the jack of diamonds. So you have middle pair and the second nut flush draw.
Yep, and so the big blind bet's 50.
So big blind bets 50. Seems like you have a pretty standard call here, I would think. Second pair, flush draw.
Yep, I just called. The second pair is pretty strong in heads up. I mean,
yeah, and you've got the second nut flush draw.
Yes, of course. Yeah, so I just called, and the turn is the 5 of hearts.
Okay. 5 of hearts on the turn. Okay.
Big blind bets 125.
So big blind bets 125. We're going fast here, so I just want to repeat again. They're playing heads up live. Hero opens king jack of diamonds in the small blind on the button. Gets sort of like, we didn't talk about this guy's sizing here too, kind of small. Just a straight 3x seems small anyways, right? And hero calls ace, king, 10, all diamonds. Big blind bets 50. Hero calls. Hero has king of hearts, jack of diamonds. Turns the 5 of hearts. Big blind bets 125. I still think this is mostly call here. I mean, if you were thinking about doing anything else but calling, I mean, obviously you're turning your hand, I guess, like into a semi bluff. And then again, you know, you can go down the weeds here because I don't know how much just like ace X, no diamond goes bet here, or how much it's supposed to be bet from your opponent's perspective, anyways.
Right. Yeah, I actually raised to 400.
Really? So why did you raise?
I was just thinking my king might not be good. On a monotone flop, I was thinking he wouldn't. What kind of double barrels could he have?
My thought here is that I don't, when playing from out of position on a board like this, and you're obviously playing heads up, this is even more amplified, right? Because you have so many hands. We just talked about. Here's the thing about checking. You know, you see a lot of checking reflected when your opponent has a lot of, say, like a nut advantage or a lot of, say, nut hands in a given situation. Because you are heads up, and because, just like you said, you open like 80% of your hands. I mean, I don't know if he knows that. And because he 3-bets so small, you have so many hands here. So many hands here. Like almost every suited hand here. Anyways, that I would think from the out of position player's perspective, I don't know if I would just be going bet with an ace here on a monotone board on flop and on turn, like ace 7 of clubs here or something like that. So if you get on board with what I'm saying here, then this bet starts to be a little bit polarized. This line starts to be a little bit polarized from your opponent. And that's why your specific hand of having middle pair and the second nut flush draw seems to be a good calling hand against a range that's starting to become polarized. Because and what I mean by starting to become polarized is like very strong or just very weak. I wouldn't want to take a hand like that and raise it and get all his bluffs to fold out. And obviously he's going to continue on with strong hands. I mean, that's my thought. That's why it seems to me like a square call, just in this spot here.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Now, people are saying, is he folding an ace? Again, I understand. I mean, I'm sure that that's what Kyle was thinking. He wanted to get him off of a weak ace. I'm just saying, like, does a weak ace bet here twice? That's my question.
Yep.
So you raised to 400.
400. And I did want to talk about that sizing. Let me think. How much have we put in at this point? Anyway, so we put in, once I put in the 400, I put in about 500 of my stack. So I have about 1,500 behind.
Well, I guess my question to you here is that, so you decide to raise to 400. If he, and again, see, this is what, it's just, The reason why I'm almost short circuiting with trying to figure out the raise size is because I continue to go back to the fact that there just doesn't seem to be there doesn't seem to be a medium portion of hands here that's gonna fold out. He either's gonna just have nothing and fold out, or he's gonna continue. So I don't know if going to 300 to 400 really necessarily matters. Now, again, I keep going back to the fact like it seems like you think, maybe he does have ace 6 of hearts here and he'll fold. I don't even know if he would fold that though. If you do, I mean, I assume that's where you're going. But if he calls, so let's say, raise it to 400 and he calls, right? And now, the pot's like 1,000, and then you'll have, 1,500 left, right? In your stack, you start with 2,000. If the river breaks out and he checks, like, what is your plan? Are you going for it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is the plan. I guess that was the plan.
I mean, the only illogical thing that I'm going to say here, though, about your thinking, Kyle, here's my problem with this whole approach is that you are raising because you think there's fold equity against like a hand like ace 6 of hearts, right? Okay. So if you are called, how does that change your opponent's range? Now, your opponent has a range that he gets here with on the turn. Okay, he's betting 125. You think he's got a range. And you obviously think that part of that range is like this weak ace X portion of that range where if you raised, he's going to fold that out. So now you raise, and now I assume he calls, right? Does he call?
Yeah, he calls.
Okay, so now he calls. So now how does that change the big blind's range?
It's obviously much stronger. I mean, I would have guessed that it would be like at least 2 pair plus, but it's hard to say. Like I said, I'm not a heads up player. But you said you don't think he would even fold. He might not even fold ace 6.
Well, I don't know about that. I tend to think that that doesn't necessarily go bet. Now, with that being said, what I just said, the fact that you raised to 400, if you think that a good portion of that ace X range will fold out, the reason itself, if you think that will work, is not necessarily bad because you get immediate fold equity and you also have equity, right, against that. The one little part of this that I take exception with you is that once he calls, continuing on with a bluff on the river. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you can raise and then give up on the river unimproved because the whole purpose of the raise was to get him to fold ace 6 on the turn, right? But now that he calls, it skews his range. That's kind of where I'm going with this here.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Okay, and I was going to ask you, like, do we have any just raise give ups here?
I mean, I would think if you think he's folding out a medium portion of that range, then I would think it would be a raise give up. I mean, unless somebody say, well, he's going to fold ace king all in at the end here or a set. You know what I mean? I just your heads up.
It's hard to say. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Right? Yeah, it's heads up. I mean, he can defend with a lot, and also, I mean, like this is still live poker where I mean, people love to call. So I mean, but yeah, and the river is the jack of spades.
The river's the jack of spades. So the board is ace king 10 all diamonds. The turn is the 5 of hearts, and the river is the jack of spades. It puts a one-liner out there to a queen, but you've made 2 pair. So even before you tell me what you're going to do here, obviously the thing that I find interesting about this spot here is that, well, there's a couple things. If he does continue with that bullshit, like ace X portion of his turn range, which we didn't really think he was going to continue with, you beat that. But now maybe you will get some of those hands to fold out that I didn't think were going to fold out, like ace king at the end here. Did he check?
He checked, yeah.
So big blind checks. So obviously you have all the flushes here too, which is sort of what you were representing.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many more flushes than him. It's
right. I mean, that's probably the case because you're opening, so much and then defending so much. Yes, you do. And then it makes it, I guess it would make it harder for him to hero here with certain hands that he might hero on a blank because of the fact that you might maybe have some queen of diamonds here. But again, it's still a little bit bizarre for the same reasons to like raise a hand, I think, like with king queen with the queen of diamonds, the stiff queen of diamonds here, just like it's a little bit bizarre for you to raise like king of hearts, jack of diamonds. But he might not know that. He might just be looking at the board and it's like, oh God, how can I call now with ace king? Because now that the nut diamond sort of makes a straight, right? The single nut diamond, it's like, what does he beat? So,
Yeah.
People are saying slam, dunk, check, easy check back. Easy check back. Why? Because you think that you're beating a lot of ace X. I'm looking at the comments here. Because you think you're betting a lot of ace X. I don't know if the hero is still, I don't know if the jack changes anything in terms of like if the hero wins now where he wasn't winning before.
The only thing that we're now ahead of is like king 10, I guess.
Yes, that's true. King 10.
But that's really not much. And yeah, like we said, I think we can agree that he's folding out all of his one pair ace X hands. So, I mean, yeah, really king 10 is the only thing. And that's down to 2 combos with, assuming he 3-bets the suited variety.
David Smith saying, what worse hands call? He's turning his hand into a bluff. Turn king jack into a bluff here.
If I'm betting here, it's a bluff because I mean,
right.
we're looking at his sets and 2 pairs and yeah. But I ended up checking behind.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, somewhat ingloriously.
Because like I said, like I think that if you're gonna raise turn, you should give up on the river except on one of these cards. I mean, and this one might actually be one of the only ones that's like super interesting, right? Look, you can just go through a couple of different things, right? Like, so you raise to 400, he calls, okay? Now let's say the river's a diamond. Let's say it's like the 3 of diamonds and he checks. What do you do?
I mean, he shouldn't have a lot of offsuit queens, right? I mean, except like ace queen and king queen with the queen of diamonds, right? But
it's interesting because you look at this one, like say again, it's ace king 10, all diamonds, turns to 5 of hearts, hero raises turn. Let's say the river's the 3 of diamonds and the guy checks. Hero's got the second nut, right, with the jack of diamonds. But then it's like, what are you, how deep do you go? Like the next nut is the 9 and the 8 of diamonds, right? And then it's like, yeah, heads up, people are supposed to be calling flushes, but how does the guy get here with anything like 9 or below, given the raise? So that gets a little bit interesting here too. Because at first it looks like, oh, it's a slam dunk value bet, right? Now, what if the river is a king? So ace king 10, all diamonds turns to 5, river's a king.
So I've tripped up, but I mean, does that really make a difference to me? I mean, I guess it makes it so we don't beat king 10 compared to having...
you beat ace 10.
Yes, beating ace 10 there, but we're still losing to... I mean, I guess there's not a whole lot of...
You beat ace queen. I mean that was one of the... So one of the other things that I didn't discuss, because I do find this interesting on the turn, is how often does he have ace queen, no diamond that bets turn again and calls raise? Again, I still think that gets checked at a fair frequency. I don't know how often it's going bet, but I think if I played it this way, even though I don't think I would play it this way, I think the turn's a call, I would bluff here at the end for, the reasons that you had started off, that you have just a ton of flushes here, and you might end up with queen X. Now, the question is, what kind of sizing, though, do you use too? Because the pot's 1,000, you guys have 1,500 left, so do you get to bet 1,500 here on the river with just the queen of diamonds on the ace king 10 5 jack run out? Maybe, but it sounds like you check. So you say you checked it back, and it sounds like you're disappointed. Did he? I don't know what he has. Did he have ace king by chance?
Yeah, he showed ace king offsuit.
Amazing, right? You did not tell me that, right?
No, I didn't. It's not in the email.
Yeah, I mean, it makes
Pretty
sense.
crazy.
It makes sense the way that you're saying it, and again, that makes sense as a bet, which is why I wasn't a huge fan of your turn raise. But hero checks back. But you understand what I'm saying, right? Like if you think that the ace 7, ace 4 types of holdings, right, are going to just fold off on the turn, which is the reason why you raised, right? But then when you get called, you have to lop off that portion of his range, right? Yeah. And then he's left with those, with those other hands. By the way, another hand, does he ever have ace 5 suited here? And you'd get that to fold too, right?
Yep, for sure.
As a bet and a continue. Interesting one, because you don't really get to play a whole lot of heads up, that much in live poker, but definitely interesting. Thank you very much for the call, Kyle. I appreciate it.